Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. This time we're looking at RGB to HDMI on the Amiga. So both systems here, the 500 and the 2000. And of course there might be variants in between that you might be able to apply these mods to. So the one that works on the 500, for example, you could perhaps fit it the same way in a 2000 if there's enough space underneath the power supply there, or a 1000 perhaps, I don't know. So this is an A500 with a Kickstart 2 ROM, actually, just making you think it's a 500 Plus. And obviously this is displaying on my LCD TV, and it's got SCART RGB support. And this TV obviously is really happy with 15 kHz horizontal scan rate. So, you know, standard definition video. It's got a built-in upscaler in order to display that. Because the thing you've got to realise here is, like, 15 kHz, that's, you know, that ties into obviously the resolution. So for example, and these are just PAL, I'm just going off PAL here, obviously the frequency is slightly different and the resolutions are slightly different on NTSC. But for PAL, examples of screen resolution would be 320 by 256. Yeah, that might be less than that now. Actually, what we're seeing there might be 320 by 240 or something like that. But there's quite a lot of different resolutions. I'll just briefly show you a website that just shows some of those resolutions, and I'll link it down below. There are a lot of different resolutions that the Amiga can provide, and obviously it varies a little bit between OCS, the original Denise, you know, the original chipset that shipped the 500, and the ECS, which came in on later boards, 500 Plus in particular, and the 600 and stuff. But the point I'm trying to make here is this TV is currently supporting a standard definition, you know, approximately 15 kHz signal that way. Many HDMI TVs that have been sold over the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 years may not allow SCART RGB input. Now the problem there is converting. You're thinking, what is there to convert? Surely it's just a video signal, surely all modern TVs would support it. Well, first problem, obviously, you've got to convert from the actual connector type. So you've got, you know, red, green and blue going out on the SCART connector there, and sync, yeah? Modern TVs have got HDMI. A HDMI connector is purely digital. It's expecting digital communication. It's not expecting red, green and blue on specific, you know, 3 individual analog red, green, blue bits and sync. So you need something that sits in between in order to be able to display standard definition picture like this on most modern TVs. So yeah, I've got lots of bags with bits in here. We can see a PCB here with a switch, some turn pin connections. There might be some 74 series ICs or something on there. Let's just have a look at that PCB. They may already be fitted if I'm lucky. Ah yeah, they are, look. That's kind of assembled, it just needs the sockets soldering on. So someone's kindly assembled that for me. Now, it's important to know, this came from Keith McGurr again. Absolutely amazing guy. I love the things he's been sending me. It's taken me a while to work through some of these, but you'll have seen some of the other bits earlier on, like the flip box, for example, that came from Keith. There's a Zorro A500 adapter, that came from Keith. I loved building both of those things. And the Live 2 2 meg Agnes adapter, again, that came from Keith. And they're just brilliant projects, ideal for beginners and stuff. If you want to get involved in electronics, these are the sorts of projects that are ideal to get going with. But at the same time, is that they're interesting, they're super interesting, you know, they bring a lot of capability to the Amiga. So that was that one. There's a switch there as well. So you use that to navigate the menu and select menu options and things. That's quite cool. And out of my own money, I purchased this for the 2000. So this was produced by a nice guy in Sweden, actually. Look at the colour of that PCB, it's gorgeous, isn't it? It's got a jumper there for a Super Denise or the standard Denise. So you can fit this into your A2000 motherboard, and you stick a Raspberry Pi there. In the case of the 500, this does the same thing. You know, it will plug into the Denise or Super Denise socket on a 500 or 500 Plus, and then your normal Denise or Super Denise goes there, and the Pi will plug into the header socket there once that's fitted. So they're doing exactly the same thing, just a different form factor. But that PCB is gorgeous, isn't it? So we'll have a look at both. So we'll start with the 500 side of things. We'll put this one to the side. You can see it's got a switch on a wire, just like we've got the switch for the 500 version. But I went a step further with the 2000. I got this, which was 3D printed. I think it came from Poland, this. So yeah, the print could be a bit better just there. You always get this problem though on fine textured surfaces and things like that, but you know what, it's quite nice. And it's got the button there, so from the back of the 2000 you'll be able to, you know, change the modes and things like that. And it just fits into the dedicated video slot there. And it has an adapter from full-size HDMI there to the mini one that you get on the Raspberry Pi, the Pi Zero, because it's the Pi Zero that's doing all the work here. So So then I also ordered a Raspberry Pi Zero here, as you can see, and a 16 gig card. That's more than you need. You could probably get away with the 512 meg card, to be honest, but you might struggle to get a micro SD that small. So anyway, that was only about £3 or something. So I've got a card for the Pi Zero there. And of course, when you buy the Pi kits and things, you get all these little adapters and things. So I'm probably not going to need these, but they all seem to have come with different adapters that I probably won't need. Is that another Pi? I've only got 3 Pis here. What's going on with all these Pis? They're breeding. Yeah, I'm confusing myself. That other Pi was for the 2000. I got that at the same time as part of the kit. So just make sure there's nothing in there. In here, is this another adapter? Yeah, it's crazy how many of these I've got. I've got another one of those. So put those out of the way. So we need some of these strips here to plug into the original socket. And we're also going to need a socket for the Pi to plug into. Now you can see I've soldered the pin header on this particular one already. The one I'm going to use with this, I need to do that on. Yeah, I mean, you could solder it straight on if you wanted, but that's like a permanent thing. And it will sit a little bit higher up, which might help. I don't know, it could be worse if it's higher up. But anyway, I'm going to need a socket for that, I think. So before we start here, I thought I'd just measure some things with the scope, just to show you some of this, and it might kind of make sense to you. So this is Denise. It's an OCS Amiga, this. It's the original chipset. It's a Rev 6 A500. It's got an 8371. This is the one we saw me repair in a previous video. Now, if I scope pin, I think it's 32. Denise, I think, is 48 pin, isn't it? So you've got 24 pins on one side, so 25, 26. So I'm scoping pin 32. Yeah, so as I say, C-Sync, you've got H-Sync and V-Sync merged together there, and that's the frequency of that signal, as you can see, is 15.63. So that does tie in with what I was guessing before from memory, that when people say 15 kilohertz, it's not exactly 15 kilohertz. It's, in this case, 15.63, and that might be the norm for PAL. It's going to vary, probably. It's going to be a subtle difference there between PAL and NTSC, as I mentioned earlier about resolutions and stuff. So these are the A500 schematics. You've got Denise here. Yeah, this is the graphics chip that produces the RGB, and you can see we've got 4 bits for each colour. Yeah, it's like 12-bit colour, effectively. Well, not effectively, it is, it's 12-bit colour. So you've got 4 red, 4 green, 4 blue. And then you've got these 2 4-5s. Now, you saw a minute ago there's some chips on that board. They're going to be replicating this here. You're going to have at least a couple of buffer chips there, or something like that, some latches or something, to to buffer that data, because it's going to go through to the Pi GPIO. It's a 3.3 volt device. It may be 5 volt tolerant, I don't know, but it probably isn't. So this is what some of those chips are going to be on there for. They're going to buffer the red, green and blue signals. You're getting the digital data coming straight out. Now, normally, you can see it goes to the hybrid. I'll show you the hybrid. So that's the hybrid there, yeah? That is effectively part of the DAC, yeah? Or you could call it the DAC, but those are those buffers in between. So red, green, blue going through that. And then, of course, from here you can see RGB, yeah? So you've converted, the 4 bits for each colour channel into analog, because there's a digital, the sides are analog, into analog, red, green and blue, to go to your, video output connector here that will go to a TV or a monitor. That's that's 15 approximately kilohertz scan rate, horizontal scan rate. So in terms of the board we're going to be plugging in here, so it's definitely going to be picking up those 12 colour bits. It may pick up 1 or 2 more of these clocks for something, but I suspect in general you could get away with the colour stuff, colour information, yeah, and C-Sync. Combined sync, or composite sync it's sometimes referred to, I think. So yeah, you can have a H sync and your V sync combined together coming in here, so it's got sync and it's able to output the red, green and blue, based obviously on what's in the RAM and stuff, what the system wants it to do. This is a 720p TV, yeah, so you've got 720 lines this way. It's something like 1200 something the other, yeah. Obviously there's a relationship and aspect ratio as well here, because this is not 4:3, yeah, it's wide. Can you see we've got a black bit there, got a black bit there, so the 4:3 aspect ratio is what's shown here, because my TV can handle it. But when you need to convert from standard definition to something HDMI, HDMI type of connection, you need to take that into account as well, yeah, that you've got these gaps here, otherwise it's just totally stretched down, it would look distorted. But in terms of converting that standard definition, approximately 15 kilohertz signal, you need to double it, yeah, at least. And then when you double it, you may have a border at the top, a border at the bottom. If you've got a higher resolution TV, like a 1080p one, you could have quite a small picture, a standard definition. Say this is 1080p now, and we took this screen here, converted it and upscaled it to, not really upscaled it, but just fed it straight to HDMI, you'd end up with a tiny little picture, because the number of lines is so few. This TV, could be displaying at 1080 that way, but this image, this screen here, the standard definition image is 320 by 240, so 240 out of 1080 is like a quarter of the screen, isn't it? It's tiny, That's why you need to upscale it. You need to take every single line this is giving us here now, all 240 or 256 of them, and as you go down the screen a line at a time, you get the first line, and then that's from the Amiga, because the Amiga's sending this, and it's sending it very fast, like 15 kilohertz fast. You take that line, you output it on the next line, the same, so you've got two copies of the same line, and then you've scandabled. If you just keep doing that, you'll have twice as many lines displaying that information, so then it would be twice as big. But if you've got a 1080 TV, and you might find it still, that image then is only half the height of the display, or something approximate to that. So you may need to take it further. You might want to do it 4 times as much. Do you see what I mean? And obviously, something like that is pretty complex, because you've got to take into account the borders here, not just the number of lines this way, but everything going that way as well, and obviously it allows to be able to move it around and adjust it and scale it and all that sort of stuff. So it can be quite a complicated thing, but Hoglets and a number of other people have obviously got together and produced this little project that just simplifies the whole thing. The Raspberry Pi, you saw the schematics, it's taking those signals and it's processing them, it's capturing this data and it's outputting it as it needs to do, and giving you the control there to say, as it's drawing the scan lines, well, start a bit further over here, or start a bit further up, or start a bit further down, and add some effects. So, one of the things I'm fully expecting to see with this is not just, it takes the data, scandals it, and then outputs it, because it might look a little bit blocky. So you would expect perhaps some filters, things like anti-aliasing and stuff. Because you've got higher resolution, it can alias edges and things. So you may find, and I'm not sure what the features are until we actually have a look at it, but you can, you've got extra pixels here to display what you're trying to display, so you can make use of those to have like a halfway colour between the previous pixel and the next pixel, and that would look sort of like natural to the eye. And it's a bit more complex than that, because sometimes it's done on as it goes along on a single line. Sometimes it will do two lines at once and then alias based on those 2 lines together, and you get a different kind of effect. And there's all sorts of different ways that filters like that can be done. So the first thing we'll do is get these sockets and these pin headers here. Now there's 2 different ways these could go on here. They're joined up, so it's like that top row there joins to the row below it, all the way along on both sides. And it's the same with the bottom row there and the row below it, they're all joined up. So in first inspection you could think, put the sockets either way, they could go like that there, or they could go like that there. Bear in mind, you've got to put the pin strips on the underside first and do the inner row before you stick your socket on, otherwise you can't get access to them. We'll obviously need to cut these down to size because they're a bit long, but anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to solder those strips on first, and I think if you look at these, there's a silhouette like a box that goes around there, and that indicates that that's where the strips go. Actually, you can see it there. That one's got a box as well, a white box all the way around it. So yeah, we'll go like that. So I'll just cut these down to size. An easy way to do that is just to put it in, make sure all the pins are in, and then just cut it like that. So I'll put the extra bit away, and we can do the other one by just measuring them up side by side. That's the easiest way, but do make sure you get them aligned with each other properly. There we go. As I say, this side is the top, because I've seen photos of that way, and you've got a thicker end here and a thinner end. The thicker end is the bit you solder onto, so those are just going to go through there like that. And somehow now we just need to plug this in. Certainly easier said than done, this bit. There we go, it's on one side. Let's try and get that side in. Yeah, there we go. Because then you can just put it nice and flat like that and solder it up. And don't just go crazy and solder all the pins, just do start with a couple of diagonals and then hold and press the two together just to make sure it is nice and straight, and obviously inspect, and then you can go crazy and solder all of the remaining pins. So that's both strips of those soldered up. You can now start to separate this. I'm just going to use some pliers and pull apart like that, use them to lever. It's coming off there. I think it's off there. Just carefully pull it off. Yeah, you can see it's not really suffered any worse for wear or anything, but one of the pins there is slightly bent. I think that's because it's not been plugged into anything, it's just been knocking around in the component drawer. I can now just plug that back in there. Have a look, it was turn pin into turn pin. I've got a couple of those turn pin sockets there. Now you can get sockets the right size here, but the kit comprises of two. Gives it a bit of extra strength in the middle as well, so we'll just go with the ones that have come with it. We just need to just fit the socket there, flip it over. Hang on. It's not going in, is it? Why is it not going in? Oh, that is a pain. You can see the next issue here. I think the pins need trimming down super short, because the socket is kind of like seesawing on these here. And you know what? Holding it down and then soldering a couple of points to anchor it, that will be fine, because if I hold it here like that, I'm not sure if you can see, but there is enough to solder onto here. Yeah, there we go. So the second one is in position. I made sure it was straight along here like this, and straight there, yeah. In terms of just anchoring the couple of points, so you can see, I anchored it down here, and I think I anchored it over there somewhere, and here. So I just need to just finish off by just soldering those points there, soldering these points here. So the connector for the GPIO has arrived. You can see I've positioned that on there, and we'll solder that on. It's a bit tight next to the strips of pin header there. That's one thing that can just make it a little bit difficult on the inside if you're not used to soldering. It is pretty straightforward though. You can see that's not straight, that's a bit crooked, so we just need to just press it and reflow. There we go, all soldered on. I need to clean this up. I'll put it in the ultrasonic cleaner actually. Anyway, we are at the point where I can solder a couple of wires onto a switch. The two connections here, can you see them? Those are for the switch, so I just need, let's say, some wires from there to there. But right now we can plug the Pi in actually. Now I am guessing it sits this way. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it sits over the top of that. I just need to go check that. No, I don't think it would fit that way. I think if you push that on with a chip in between there, well, maybe it does fit that way, I don't know. I'm going to go check that just to make sure I get this the right way around. But the next thing I'm going to do while I'm looking at some photos is take the micro SD card out. It's not a click one, is it? No, it's not. Yeah, some of them are like latch in and out, don't they? This one isn't. I'll just detach it. We'll go program up that card. I'll stick a link down below to where you can find the information about, the build for this and where you get the files from and all the rest of it. So I simply unzip the files to this micro SD card here, just plug it in, and I've checked photos and it overhangs this way, actually, out that way. Yeah, that's correct. So as this goes into your Amiga, which has got a bit of fluff on it, look, it's actually a piece of the edge of the PCB, look, it's not being filed down properly. Yeah, it faces towards the front, so this is where you would need to use one of those adapters I showed earlier to feed out the back somewhere. You could 3D print something or something like that to have a nice connector on the back of your Amiga. But anyway, yeah, that will go into the Denise socket. Denise will fit in here, pin 1. Now it's a Super Denise on the A500. Now I've just realised mistake. Maybe I should have soldered this on first. Yeah, you have a jumper here, but because it lays flat this way, you don't want it sticking up, because obviously it'll interfere when you're plugging it in. If you have it flat, just angle the pins down there, you can actually solder from this side really easily. So we'll do that now. I'll stick a jumper on there, and you can see there's two positions. Super Denise is the top position, normal Denise is the bottom position. So I've got a jumper there ready, and I've got some pin header that has been reclaimed off something I did. And what I'm going to do here is just grip all three pins and bend down a little bit like that. Yeah, there we go. That's going to fit perfectly. So we'll just leave it like that, and we can solder it in situ. Just being careful not to get solder on the pins here. Yeah, so that was kind of retrospectively fitted on there. It's probably easy to get that out of the way before you stick your strips on here. In any case, we've got a Super Denise, so I'm going to try and just get this on there now in the Super Denise position. There we go. That's it. So the only thing we need now to test it is the switch. So I've just gone with a spare piece of wire I had in my wire container and just cut it in two, and it's not going to be very long. I don't want it to be very long really. I could always redo it if I want a longer wire later. I don't think I'm going to permanently mount this inside anything. It's going to be for testing and stuff really, more than anything. I've got the you know, the one for the 2000 there that probs will go into my 2000. If we just strip the ends off these. We'll solder onto this switch first of all, I think. Actually, we'll just feed them through. You always get a better connection on these if you do actually feed the wire through the switch like that. And then under the pressure of the wire pushing upwards, we can just add a little bit of solder and flux to that. That's it. Just going to hold it and push the wire in. That'll do. And again, we'll just trim these down because they are going to end up shorting. That's it. So that's that. Just pull these down a little bit, and then what I'm going to do here is twist these together. Actually, you know, if one of these was a ground going around the other one, that can actually help with the noise. Anyway, that's that. So we just need to just solder that onto the board now. So we need to try and feed these two through here. There we go, that's it. And then just put it upside down and solder it. What I can do is just try and push the wire as we heat these just to straighten up a little bit. That'll do. Yeah, there we go, we've got a good join there. We can just trim the excess off here now. And we are good to go and test. So as you can see, we've actually got a Pi Storm in there at the moment, so you can have a Pi and a Pi, and in theory if you wanted an A314 you could put a Pi over there probably, although the Pi Storm can provide the A314 in emulation. But it's incredible how many Pis you can actually fit in these. Now, because this has got the PLCC Super Denise adapter there that we covered in a previous video, link up top right, I'm not too worried about bending the pins, widening the pins here, because they're already widened. It's already had pins in from that. Of course, the issue there is we will widen these pins, won't we? I'm not too bothered, to be honest. I could always replace that socket if I had a huge problem. Well, it might not fit with this adapter. Let's just see. Yeah, that's not going to fit, is it? I think I'll have to get a normal Denise and just change that jumper over and just go with the normal Denise, because my Super Denise is not going to fit there, is it? So I bought a standard Denise there for my Rev 6A board. If we can just get this jumper off, easier said than done, and we need to pull it into the bottom position now because it's going to have a normal Denise. Come on. Yeah, there we go. There we go, so jumper changed over to standard Denise. Pin 1 is up here. Just carefully plug that in. That's it. And then we need to get it this way around. Like that. There we go. And then I have a HDMI cable here, and I'm going to have to move the whole lot over this way because it's not quite long enough. It's incredibly short actually, and hopefully that'll just plug in there. No, it won't. So let me go and get the adapter. You know what, all these different standards of cables really winding me up. You know, it's silly, isn't it? Why keep making them smaller and smaller and smaller? I just don't get it. You know, the unreliable as they are, the smaller you get, the less reliable they get. Anyway, here we go. Now it won't reach still, so let's just twist it this way a bit. Oh, it's just going to about reach there, isn't it? But it's, you can see it's obviously pulling that up a little bit, but that should do us. So let's power it on and see what blows up. So I'm just going to go with the stock 68,000 first of all. I may try it with the Pi Storm in a minute or something, perhaps. Right, let's give that a try. So I'm getting nowhere with that Pi at all. It's flashing the LED, the green LED a couple of times and then nothing. No HDMI, you can leave it for a few minutes to boot, nothing. I've taken the micro SD card out, as I say, and that's okay. So I've got another Pi here now. I think this may have come from Keith McGurr. Certainly the board and stuff that goes with this, we might swap to trying to use that if we don't get anywhere with this. It probably isn't this, to be fair, but we've got to at least rule it out. So we can get the flux and stuff off there in a minute. Right now I just want to get the card in and go and give it a try, actually. Yeah, there we go. So that's RGB. Now the question is, what are we getting on the HDMI? I'm not sure which one it is. Oh, there we go. And that looks absolutely terrible. Look how squashed in it is. The main thing is it's working though, so I've must have got everything right there. So I've pressed the button, hold the button, hang on, it's on the screen capture thing. I think you hold the button down, there we go. So we're into the menu. Preferences, settings, let's look at that. So we've got font size, some Genlock settings there. Yeah, I don't want any of those, so I'll hold the button down. Let's go back. Let's have a look at geometry maybe. Because the resolution is going to be the problem here. This TV does not like this resolution. I mean, I'm not sure what that flickering is. Can you see there's like some pixel stuff going on there? I would expect somewhere in here. Oh, hang on, there it is. Resolution auto. Here we go. It's on the main menu, isn't it? HDMI mode. DVI compatible. Let's do HDMI full. Yeah. And then we'll do resolution. I'm not doing auto. So we got, that's 576, isn't it? I'm looking for the 720p on the end because this TV is natively 720. There we go, 1280 by 720. Right, let's do return. I'm guessing it should apply the settings then. Yeah, there we go, rebooting it in 5 seconds. Let's see what that looks like. Oh wow, okay. There we go. Now it's off the top, strangely enough, but actually, I'm very pleased with that. That looks fantastic. Absolutely crystal clear. I actually think to get the best out of this now test-wise, I think we should connect up the Pi Storm actually. So now we know that's working, let's just clean up the flux off there. That'll do, I think. So I've switched it off, let's get the Pi Storm in there. There will be a separate video on this coming very, very soon. I've wanted, this is where it's going to get tight, look. This is not going to fit, is it, with a Pi Storm? You need an adapter, I think. Let me just see if I've got one. Yeah, you see I've got like the really small one, which that isn't, that's the medium size. And the only other thing I've got are these, you know, the medium ones to the large ones. Quite why we need 3 different HDMI standards, I don't know. Yeah, so that is not going to fit in there. I don't think. We can try and unplug it and just see if this will somehow rest on top. Yeah, look, it's not going to fit as a... Oh, it's so annoying that people don't think of these things. I mean, I guess you could lift that up a little bit, I don't know. I'm really stumped as to how to connect the accelerator up as well. Yeah, this is the problem here. You know, if I fit this here and then stick another CPU card on there, this is right in the way. So you're kind of knackered. There's very little you can do. Get the CPU in there and press that down. Yeah, it's not making a very good connection, that is it. Let's just try it without that start with. Hang on. Yeah, so that's RGB. It waits quite a while when there's no drive connected, so I'll connect a drive up. Oh, I'm not having much luck here. This needs powering, this adapter. So of course the power won't reach over here. So I'm just going to get the A500 up. It's far easier. The bottom line is you can do these things. Obviously you need a cable coming off there. The cable might need to go over the top of the HDMI. The point I'm trying to make is these things will work and will coexist together, but you just need to spend the time making sure everything's right. And in this case here, it's not worth the time it would take me to power that IDE thing, because we know it works. There's no reason why it would clash with that at all. Take 6, I think. I don't know, I've lost track of how many times I've been trying to connect some sort of drive up. There we go, let's put that there. Of course it needs the CPU back in here. And we'll connect the HDMI back up again. And let's see what happens. Switch it on. So I'll switch back to HDMI whilst that's booting. Yeah, there we go. You can tell that's HDMI, it's super sharp. Now, the first problem I have with this, and this could just be because I'm using a 720p TV, you can see it's right up to the very, very, very top there. I'm not even sure if that's missing something off the top. That's going to be, you know, a result of the scan double in there, that when you're using 720p, it doesn't quite double very well. You have to lose some of the top and some of the bottom. So my first point would be, if you've not got a 1080p TV, you've got an older HDMI TV like me, just bear in mind you might lose some of the top and bottom of the image, because we certainly have done here. Anyway, let's load some games, I think. Just realised this hard disk has got no games on it. I need to swap over to the other A500 because this one's got more games on it. That other one's only got a couple. I mean, the one problem with HDMI is it's really blocky, actually. Everything looks really, you know, I can see the pixels really clearly. The one thing I would say is it looks better on RGB for me personally. So this is a preference thing, really. It depends. Do you want to see the squareness and the, you know, the jaggedness of the pixels, or do you want to see it like I do, which is with a slight natural blurriness? RGB is very good. I've never had a problem with RGB on this TV, but ultimately it's going to depend on your TV, isn't it? If your TV's awful in terms of its upscaling, this is where something like this could be super useful to you. And herein lies the next problem with these HDMI adapters. They're very good, they're very impressive, don't get me wrong, but there's no audio. The audio's not there, is it? Now, your TV, if it's anything like mine, it mutes the audio. And despite the audio being connected up to the TV via the SCART cable, obviously because we're not on the SCART connector, we now have no audio. Now, I have looked at this in the past on other systems. You can mix the audio in. I think I need to use a cable. I'll probably need to use this, I think. Plug it into the audio input on the back, change the settings on the TV to say that HDMI 2 merges that audio with it, connect, you know, some phono leads up to those, plug those into the back of the Amiga. Anyway, you get the idea. It's a bit of hassle. If you're running your sound through a hi-fi or something like that, or direct speakers, obviously it's not going to be a concern to you, but if you're like me and you're just running it straight through your TV, you're going to have no audio to start with until you do something to resolve that. And there we go. After a few minutes of messing about with wires and settings on the TV, I have managed to get this TV to mix like a separate audio auxiliary input in with the HDMI video. So that looks great, sounds great. It's a bit quieter actually that way, I don't know why. Or maybe it's not, I'm imagining things. Yeah, so that does look pretty darn amazing. Let's just hit fire, let's just start it, see what it looks like in game. Of course I could do some direct HDMI captures later. You can see a bit of image retention at the top there, that's just my TV. So, yeah, it looks nice, but I don't know. I don't like being able to see the pixels. You can see the image retention there. Can you see that, this red thing at the top where the title was? I always get that on that game, I don't know why. Let's try Agony, because that's a really gorgeous looking game visually. I can't try AGA games on here obviously because it's you know, it's an OCS or ECS system. OCS at the moment because I haven't got these Super Denison. So again, that's looking very sharp. That is a higher resolution mode there that's interlaced or something. It looks amazing there. Let me just check how I'm still on HDMI. Yes, I am. So yeah, very crisp, very clear. Yeah, you see, so like all the pixelization here, you can see the individual pixels. I can't see those anywhere near as much in RGB. There's like a dithering going on. You can see, I perhaps zoom in to show you, but there's like differences between the pixels there. I've zoomed you right in there. Can you see the pixelization, the dithering here, the oranges? There's a bit of dithering going on. It doesn't look anywhere near as noticeable and catch your eyes when you're looking at it on RGB. I mean, overall, the picture is excellent. Let's start the game. Yeah, that looks incredible. Seems to be fitting on the screen okay as well. We haven't lost anything off the top. And I'm not seeing any issues like no artifacts or flickering or anything like that. No tearing. Just out of interest, let me just, what did I press then? I pressed P. Just out of interest, let me switch over to RGB. You can see what the difference is like when it's like that there. So you can see it definitely pulls the picture in more. It's expanded out when it's in HD. Colours are a lot more vibrant, aren't they? It's brighter. I'm just looking at a flickering. There is a flickering I can see there in the background, like on the copper stuff, you know, where you've got the coloured bands there. There's a bit of flickering just on that layer, but I think that's the same on both cases actually. Yeah, it is. It's doing exactly the same thing there. You know, the tree here is like static, solid, but that background's kind of like flickering, but that might be deliberate, the way this game has been written. Nevertheless, we see the same thing in RGB there. But hopefully you can see what I mean about it being a bit more naturally blurry. There is a kind of blurriness there that you don't get with HDMI, because obviously it's pixel perfect, sharp, crisp, showing every single pixel exactly as they are. Yeah, that looks nice and sharp. Yeah, that looks incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let me just toggle to RGB. And that's RGB. You can see it looks just as good. It's just a little bit blurrier. Anyway, let's stick a credit in. The other thing I've noticed, can you see this, the red on the tail here? That it looks over bright. That does not look correct. Yeah, look at that. That looks like a proper red on RGB, but it looks almost purplish in HDMI. So yeah, I'm not happy with that, to be honest. There's something strange going on with the colours there. It's making them over bright. Yeah, I mean it's super bright, super clear, but I actually think it's too bright. Maybe there's a bug or something, or maybe it's something to do with whether your TV supports the expanded colour stuff, I don't know. Maybe I've got it in the wrong setting there. I might just have to play around with the settings to see if I can get that red looking more like it should do. And I don't mean the settings on the TV, I mean the settings on the Pi here. But yeah, again, it just looks a little bit too blocky. I don't like seeing the edges of the pixels. So just try and hybris. Bear in mind, there's going to be lots of filtering options. You don't necessarily need to leave it on the default settings, and we may get a better display by changing some of the filter options and stuff and how it anti-aliases perhaps. Yeah, it looks nice. And again, I don't really see any artifacts, you know, from the scroll and stuff here. It's capturing every single frame, isn't it? Every single scan line. One thing I've noticed, see the top of the screen? We are off the top of the screen. It took me ages to notice that, see this? And of course we can have a play around with the settings and things here. Sampling menu. And in geometry, let's just check that. Yeah, so you can just move the picture around here, can't you? You can change the width and the height. I mean, in theory, I could solve the stretched off issue by stretching it down, but then I'm not going to get proper scan doubling, am I? You know? It is the problem of trying to double a signal and fit it in 720p. You're always going to have an issue. That's good. You can save your configuration here as well. Let's do that. Saved. Same as default. Let's try changing the scaling there. It's on 4:3 soft. Yeah, that's shrunk the image right down. Look, on integer. Integer sharp, integer soft. We've got those pixels back again. Can you see that? Some like noise, so that doesn't seem to work very well on mine. Call that one interpolate 4:3 soft or softer. Okay, that's not too bad. Interpolate full soft. Yes, there's lots of options there. I'm not really sure what I prefer actually. Probably one of these, that one there, softer maybe. So yeah, that's kind of more like RGB now. It's got a kind of natural blurriness to it. Let's hit fire. Let's just see, is it off the top of the screen still? Or is it even worse from changing that? Yeah, that looks much more like RGB to me with that level of anti-aliasing or whatever it is. Yeah, I think I'd be happy with that, but again, it's not quite fitting on, is it? It's off the top of the screen. I'm guessing it's going to be that max height. Now I've just realised that's going to go up. We need to go down. So let's just go back around the menu. I did see a thing that said reverse menu or something. This is the problem with only one button. Yeah, it's at the bottom there, look, so we go all the way down to the bottom. And we choose button reverse. On. Oh god, that's annoying now, it's going up. Yeah, so now I'm pressing the button, it's going the opposite direction in all menus. So in geometry, it's going to go from the bottom upwards, and we're going to go to max vertical height, I think. Yeah, and we're going to change that from 270. Yeah, so with each click, hang on a minute, that's doing the opposite thing, look. It's making it go up the screen. So it looks like I need to go the other way, so, oh god, back in a minute. So back into max vertical height again. I'm losing the will to live using this button. Seriously. So I don't know, what do you think? It's like I say, there's going to be some weird artifact as a result of doing scaling like that. Although I'm not seeing it. If you looked at a specific line in the screen, you might see an issue, but actually that's not bad. So I have managed to correct that and just get that to squeeze on. It remains to be seen whether it's still 4:3 aspect ratio, but I think that's the best I'm going to get away with the 720p TV. Let's have a look what the desktop looks like now. Yeah, that's kind of looking more normal, isn't it? We can see a bit at the bottom here and we can see a bit at the top. So yeah, that's not bad. That is not bad. So yeah, I'm quite happy with it, to be fair. But it isn't any better for me. RGB is just as good for me on this TV. I don't really need it. So it's one of those use case things, really. You need to decide if your TV is presenting a terrible picture with RGB before you commit to getting something like this, really. It's very nice, it's very cool. If I could get something like this for the 1200, I would certainly be using it, because I'd like to use it on a different screen. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when it's like that now, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference actually between HDMI and RGB, just because I've got the little bit of filtering on. I've shrunk it down so it fits on the screen. But I don't know, let's see if I can pause it. Can I pause this? Yeah, I can pause it. Let's just switch to RGB again. Yeah, can you tell the difference? I can't. I seriously can't tell the difference. There's that issue with the red, isn't there? Right, which I haven't resolved, incidentally. Yeah, if you look at the reds there, look how orangey they look. Certainly the one on the time. Yeah, it's not as bright, is it, there? Definitely a brighter picture. I wonder if there's a brightness setting, because it just feels like the brightness is too high. The only other thing I can think is down here where we've got the HDMI, we've got RGB full. So if your TV doesn't support the full range, that might create a problem. Let's try YUV limited. I'm not sure if that's any different or not. I need to load Rainbow Islands again to see that red Tato text, I think. Yeah, that's kind of more pinkish to my eyes. And of course, so this is where you really benefit in higher resolutions. You can see we're in PAL high-res interlaced here. Now if I move the cursor, you might just be able to see a bit of ghosting around that, just a little bit. You can see some jaggedness on the actual cursor there. That's just an artifact of the de-interlacing, I think. But that is rock solid stable. If I switch back over to the RGB output, we will see what this looks like when it's running in interlace mode. So it looks just as stable there, but watch what happens when I move the cursor. See that? Hopefully that's going to get captured. Super flickery. You're looking for the LCD viewfinder, it looks like it's not as noticeable to my eyes, but here it is super flickery. When I move like that, everything is flickering, and it's very noticeable. So yeah, there's a huge difference when you're running interlace modes through this device. It's rock solid. It looks progressive. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I I don't think there are many screen modes I can test at the moment. I don't know why. Maybe you've got to install them or something, but you can see I've only got like high res, low res. And you could reduce that now. You see, look, I don't know. I'm not sure where you get those screen modes from. I'll just put it straight back in high res, I think. So you can see changing resolutions there. It's instant. You don't get any delay like you get for things like the OSSC. It's instantaneous, the resolution change there. And the interesting thing is it's kept the height thing. We adjusted it, didn't we, to pull the picture down a little bit, and that seems to have been maintained. When I go into the high resolution there, I can still see the top and bottom of the screen there. So it's also worth pointing that after I saved the settings there, powered off, came back the following day, and it's kept the settings. So that's quite good, and I'm quite happy with the way I've got that configured. I have got a natural amount of blurriness to things here now, so it doesn't look dissimilar to the RGB input. I just prefer it that way, with a tiny little bit of blurriness. So you can see I had that set. I left it on interpolate 4:3 softer. So that's how I prefer it personally, but everyone's obviously going to be different in terms of what your preference is. I don't think that times out. I think you've got to hold down the button on the return bit there, that's it, to get rid of it. So overall, yeah, it's very nice. It's a tiny bit brighter, as I say, than RGB. But that might be a good thing, but I think it just makes some colours like bright reds and blues and things look a little bit brighter than they perhaps should be. The cursor there doesn't look that orangey normally to me. It looks a little bit more redder. Now what we could do is just boot sys-test. Let's do that, because that may have a display test or something in there. It'd just be interesting to get some colour bars up or something to see how it looks. Video. Yeah, so actually it's spot on, isn't it? It is spot on, and that looks really good. The white is white. Let's just switch over to RGB. Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? Because the whites still look white. Everything sort of looks the same, but there is a difference when you compare in games and things. You could argue that maybe actually it is over the top, because can you see here, there's little variation on these. The green is noticeable, but look at the red. You can barely see the difference between these gradients here. Now if I switch back to RGB, yeah, you can see the difference clearly there. Now hopefully this won't get lost in compression, but this is RGB, and I can see very clearly gradient differences between these last 3 or 4 blocks here. And if I switch back to HDMI, this just looks like one big blob to me. So I would suggest that there is some sort of issue there. I just don't know what it is and why it's only affecting the red. It's a little bit strange. The contrast's pretty high, isn't it? Let's try changing that down instead of 85. Look at that, even when you go right down, you still can't see the difference between those blocks on the red. Yeah, so when we reduce it quite significantly, you can start to see the gradients appear there, look. Put it back up to its default of 50, and you can't tell the difference. Just a quick look at Lionheart here, because this has got some pretty good graphics. Let's skip that and start the game. Wow, that looks nice. That's nice and sharp. That's higher resolution. Yeah, the flicker in there is just not enough RAM. I've only got like 2 meg fast RAM here, and it's struggling a little bit with WHD load. If you've got the preload option set, it loads it all into RAM, but you get that flickering if you haven't got enough RAM, as it has to page in and page out blocks of data. So I was interested whether that flickering at the bottom would be correct or not, the water. Can't really play this now. You've got to actually press the direction and the button, haven't you? I think we'll test it on the 2000 motherboards next, and if it's any good on there, I might stick it into my case to 2000 actually. But so far I am impressed. You do want to get like a flexible lead to adapt from that, because the stress that's going to put that under is incredible. And if you're going to mount this inside a case, obviously you want some sort of port or something on the back or on the side. I think one of the guys who supports me on Patreon, actually one of my Discord guys, CRG, I'll post a link down below, I think he's 3D printed some fittings and things to allow connectivity. Perhaps not from this, but from the Pi Storm, but the same thing would work because obviously it's using a HDMI connector, so you could perhaps print one of the 3D models he's designed, or one of the ones he's used. He may not have designed them himself, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's a good video to check out. It's well worth checking out his channel. So we've got the Rev 6.2 A2000, so we've got the Pi inside here. It's already got the SD card, this is already set up. It might be an older version of the software, so we'll soon find out. So we've got Super Denise and Denise, so it's already set to Denise, that's correct, because this has just got a Denise, this one. And the button goes on here. I love this PCB colour, it's gorgeous, isn't it? And then the Pi goes that way up, I think, because then your video comes from here, otherwise it'd be underneath, wouldn't it? Yes, the Pi definitely goes this way up, and it goes into the video slot here. Now the print here is a bit smaller, but I thought just a quick look at the 2000. What's different? Well, very little at all. They just added a connector to make it a little bit more modular. It's exactly the same thing. You know, the 500 has got so much in common with the 2000. There's very little differences, very few differences. So you've got the you know, high-res Denise. This is from a Rev 6 A2000, but it's exactly the same. You know, this chip is functionally, you know, pin-out compatible, if you like, between the you know, the different models, so you can fit a high-res, you know, Super Denise into an A500 or a, you know, an older 2000, etc. But it just does, you know, supports higher resolutions, higher frequencies. That's all the difference between a Super Denise and a Denise is in general. But it's got exactly the same pinout we saw on the 500. It's the same chip, and it's going to work exactly the same way. They're laid out a bit differently here in terms of on the schematic. So you got your red, green, and blue here. Again, going through some buffers there, 244s in this case, through to the hybrid, known as the Videots. Yeah, so that's how the video goes out normally to the normal connector, just the same way as it does on a 500. And you'll have sync going in here just the same way, you know, C-Sync. But you've also got these two connectors here, internal video slot. You know, and if you follow the traces, they just tap the information off. So you've got, you know, analog. I think you've got analog outputs on these connectors, as well as the digital. You can see them there. You've got 3 buses, RGB, each with 0 to 4 bits each. Yeah, so those get picked up here on this connector here, CN207. You know, it shows 3 lots of connections coming in, R0 to 3, G0 to 3, R0 to 3. That indicates a bus when you see that on the schematic. So it's multiple of you know, a type of connection, and they come in here, as you can see. So yeah, you've got your digital red, green, blue, and the sync will be here somewhere as well. The sync's there, you can see that, it goes through a buffer there. That's a good idea, just buffer it. Something then bad happens here, it's not going to kill your sync, it's not going to kill your Denise. So yeah, that's what that 244 gate there is. It's just purely to buffer the C-Sync, protect this chip, protect everything before it, and it comes along here, I think, yeah, up there, and to this connector, so the other one, CN203. It'll be interesting to test this on the Rev 4 2000, because that's got a mod underneath, and actually not all 2000 Rev 4 boards have that mod. You do need to do a mod in order to get the slot there working properly with something like this. Anyway, that's now going to reach a little bit easier, isn't it, because it's right over here, so let's just plug that into the output there, and let's switch it on and see what happens. Hopefully not a fire. Well, there we go, so we've got RGB. It hasn't killed it. And there we go, HDMI. Wow, that looks so much better. So, I mean, this is a really good use case here because you can see the difference noticeably. The 2000 motherboard here has got an awful video output. You know, I can see things you won't be able to, lots of like flickering and shimmering and stuff. There's just some noise over the picture there, despite it being RGB. But when I switch to the HDMI here, it is crystal clear. Huge difference, huge difference. Now bear in mind, I've not got the alias and all that set the same on here, so I might need to do some of those same tweaks we just did. And there we are on the 2000 boot up, so we do have the same problem, look. Let's just go into the menu if we can. Anyway, you can see, gone into the menu here now, so let's just see how that's set. So that's 1280 by 720, Interpol 843 soft. I'm going to do the softer, I think. So that's exactly the same as we've got it saved on the other one. So yeah, that does look really good. Nice and clear. There's none of that flickering that was going on in RGB. I'll see if you can see the difference. Let's just switch back. Yeah, I mean, besides the fact it's a much darker picture, it's going to get lost in translation, but I can see very faint jail bars down the screen, and I can see just tiny bits of noise. But on HDMI, rock solid, crystal clear. So a little bit of fire and ice there. Yeah, that looks incredible. Yeah, I'm not very good at this game. I've never played it really. So I just realised there's mileage in putting this on now actually, because it's got the screw mounts here that go onto the PCB, and then obviously this is just about the right length there, and we can just plug directly into the back of there. And if we remove the nuts and washers from here, these are flathead screws. I thought they were going to be Phillips, but they're not. Let's get that off. And then the PCB is going to go like this here. And we'll get the washers into place, and then get the nuts on. It's really nice, this. Hopefully I've got this PCB on the right side of the that white plastic there. It doesn't need to be on the top side. And this has already got a switch look, so we can disconnect that and plug that on there. And before we stick it in, obviously we need to now route this. Now this is the fiddly bit. You've got to bend this wire like this here. Make sure it's the right way up, and it's not. That's interesting. Got to twist it all the way around and somehow connect it there. Oh, this does not feel like a good situation. I think what we're going to do is just pull that off there. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to flip it that way up, if I can. Is that going to go that way? It's got to go that way. Yeah, it has to go that way because of the shape of the thing there. So, I don't know. It's just annoying the way you've got to twist the blooming thing. It just feels like you're going to break it because it wants to go this way up here like that. Look, that's barely going to go in. Is it going to go in? There's not enough flexibility here, look. Yeah, it's just in. Look how tight that is. That's incredible. Anyway, it's not going to come loose, is it? That's for sure. And we can just push it in there like that. And then obviously we don't need that stupid adapter. We can just plug straight into here. So we're booting off a different compact flash card there. It's in a higher resolution here. This is in the interlace mode. I can tell because the cursor's got that liney thing when you move it. You can see the interlacing or de-interlacing around it. But it's off the top again, look. You can't see the top of the screen. So what is going on there? It's enough to drive you to despair. Let me try and press the switch. Let's just see if it's still got those settings in the geometry. Yeah, it's on 280, look. So I don't know. It could be the version of software that this is running on this one. If I just switch this off, I'll disconnect the RGB. Let's just go with HDMI here, because then you'll be able to see how long it takes. If I don't disconnect the RGB, it automatically switches onto that channel, so you can see there straight away it's booted, you know, the actual Pi. It took a few seconds, 2 or 3 seconds at most. We have got a black screen because it's booting. Yeah, then we are back to the desktop. Let's just time that again, so I'll switch it off, I'll switch it on. 1, 2, 3, about 2.5, 3 seconds there. Less than 3 seconds for the video to be outputs, you know, for it to start converting the video. That is very fast. So let's get the lid off the 2000 and fit that card in there. So you can see there's a little bit of rust sort of showing there again. That was one of the things I cleaned up when I sorted out this machine when I first got it. Let's just unscrew the screws there. There we go. That screw's a little bit rusted, as is the bottom one. Got a spider there, look. Yeah, so those screws certainly need cleaning up. Yeah, most of the rust has stayed off that, but you can see it just looks a little bit ready there. So yeah, I think, but perhaps I didn't clean up here enough. You can see that. So it does need a bit of a clean. I'll sort that now actually. Yeah, so you can see most of the marks are just wiped off that there. I have just used the fiberglass pen on the back of the point where this mates with the back of the 2000 there, and just wipe over it with a little bit of oil just to help stop rust there, but yeah, that's not too bad. There is a little bit of rust or something there. Let's just see if that'll come off. Well, that's not bad. So again, I will put this in this bag, which sits inside my machine here actually, just to make it complete. So in fact, we just seal the zip lock bit there, but I don't want the screws falling out and stuff. And of course, I could do the same thing I did on the Falcon by taping that down or something like that inside, but it just means it's complete. So we're going to need to clean these screws up now, because these are obviously going to be used to mount the board in there in a second. So yeah, the cleaner these are, the better. Yeah, so that's looking a bit clean. Let's just screw it into here like this, and give it a bit of a rub around here to get it off the surface. So you can see that's quite dark. You can see that. Some of the corrosion's come off, there's still a little bit more. So I'll have another go, I'll report back in a minute. Right, so still a little bit of corrosion here. You can see some on the power supply here actually as well. So if we just get the card into position here, obviously you're going to need to put the screws through here, which I've just cleaned up. This should hopefully just plug in and be perfectly aligned. I'll try and push on top of the card. Yeah, that's it. So, is that aligned? No, it doesn't look aligned, does it? This is to the side, this thing here. Yeah, can you see that gap there? So, we've got an issue there. I think, actually, that this connector wants to be mounted on top of this PCB. So, that's my mistake from assembling it. By the looks of things, if I can get it back out again, let's see if we can... Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so instead of the PCB mounted on this side of this plastic here, it wants to be mounted on the other side. So I really should be wearing the ESD wrist strap and not doing this on the carpet. So I'm just going to clean the connections up here, just because I've been handling the thing. And there's just the odd fingerprints, you can see them around here, just again where I've been handling it. Got to be careful, we've got some SMD caps and things there. So you can see now though how it's overlapping on this side of the plastic here. Let's try and get it in again. Again, pressing the PCB into the socket. There we go. Yeah, that's much better now, because once that's straightened up, it fits perfectly. So this piece here, you know, you've got to slide it up like that. I could stick a cable tie around that actually, just to hold that. I might do that. But you can see everything is connected up there. The Pi's there, the switch is there, got the switch on the back, got the HDMI port on the back as well. So I just need to get the two screws in. So that's in place. Those two screws, what I would say is they don't really thread. It's like, well, they do. I'll show you if I just undo it. You can see it's going out. But like, when you get to that point there, it feels like you could cross-thread it very easily. And it's the same with that top one. Yeah, I dare not go much further than that. So they're just barely threading into the plastic there, so they could fall out. So you might want to get a thicker thread of screw. Yeah, so here we are with the cable tie. The difficulty is trying to get it around there. And of course I don't want it to go around that switch wire, do I? I just want it to be here. There we go, it's going to be just right there. And tighten it up. Yeah, so you can see that that's not going anywhere now, is it? And of course we could just tighten that a little bit further by pulling it like that. You can do it click there, cut that off. There we go, that ain't going anywhere. So let's give it a try. So one thing I forgot there is the jumper for Super Denise or Denise. This 2000's got a Super Denise, so I've just changed that over and powered it on and booted up, and we have lovely HDMI. Fantastic. So I'm not noticing any latency at all. I'm sure there probably is some, maybe a frame or two or half a frame, but I can't notice any. This has got really good use of colour. It looks almost identical to, I think there's a Mega Drive version. It might be 32 colour mode, but it could be 64. I noticed some latency there, but I think that's just this game. It takes you a while to slow down to stop, because if I press fire, it's instant. not noticing any tearing or anything going on. Probably is worth getting a heatsink onto your Pi if you've not already got one. I need to go check that actually, I can't remember whether I fitted one on this or not. Just a test of a few demos here to make sure that everything works. Yeah, one thing I would say is that, you know, on this HDMI output here, it looks blockier. You can see the pixels because my TV does some anti-aliasing that this card is not doing. And of course I've got, you know, the settings and things there to try and counter that. But yeah, for me, it does look better on this TV in RGB mode. So I've just cut over to RGB, we've not got the sound. Yeah, it's like those things where you've got like lines and things rotating round. It just looks better in RGB. I don't know why. It looks sharper, you know, it looks jaggedy. It looks more jagged in the edges. Yeah, the thing I think I'm noticing a difference on is sort of more jaggy edges that I notice on the HDMI there versus when I'm looking at it in RGB. But it's definitely clearer. Yeah, and you can sort of see what I meant there about it stretching off the top just a little bit. Because this TV won't do 1080p, that's the issue I've got. So all reassembled and it's looking fantastic. And I have to admit, it looks pretty good with the 3D printed bracket there. And obviously, you know, you've got the button and stuff as well. This is the one I repaired in a previous series and stuff. It's got a USB wireless dongle here for the keyboard. We've got another USB port there that I can use to charge my phone. But I was thinking of adding some USB ports or something to this. Maybe by a clock port. I'm doing a video on that as well. You may or may not have seen that. If it's up, I'll stick it up there. And before I forget, on the Rev4 A2000 here, there's that wire I was talking about. Yeah, this was a factory bodge, I think, by Commodore to put a connection between, obviously, there and that connection on the slot. Let's just see what that is. Hang on, let's just turn this up. That comes from one of the connections on the CIA. There, I've just looked. Yeah, there may be other revisions of this where you need to do other things, I don't know. What I do know is prior to this Rev4, this is like a 2000B, is it? I think they call it. So the original 2000, the German model, that had loads of PALs instead of a buster, and it only had 512K chip on that board. The difference there, I think the slot was totally different. I think it may have had the same connections, but connectors here. But I think lots of stuff was just routed differently, and some signals didn't even get to these connectors here. So I think you could probably mod one of those to make it, the same as a Rev4 and a Rev6. But that's just worth mentioning. So to summarise, this is amazing. I think this is the work done by Hoglet, and as I say, there'll have been other people helping, certainly in terms of producing this adapter and various other aspects to this, maybe debugging and helping point out some of the problems, etc. But it's a wonderful little project to build yourself. You just need I think this is a Pi Zero, isn't it? You can see a heat sunk that. I've talked about this before. When you put these underneath, they stick on super firm. That's been on there in use for so many hours, hasn't fallen off. So how could this be bettered? Well, it's already been bettered in some ways, in that you can get an A600 one now. So if you've got an A600, you can get one that clips on one of the tops of the chips there. As I mentioned earlier, check out CRG's video, because you can have the little connector, like the hoods and things, somewhere on your Amiga to have somewhere to plug your connector in. Makes it a little bit easier as well. But obviously there was a bit of a clash earlier on when we tested this in terms of trying to get other things with it, like a TF536 or something. There's ways around that. You could relocate this. You could have another relocator somewhere to shift this around. You could use a different type of relocator with a CPU accelerator card, so that your accelerator card's not clashing with this board here. In another video, you'll see there are other similar solutions. There's the Pi Storm, for example, because the Pi Storm is output in the video HDMI like this, straight from a Pi. So you're getting the scan doubling, the de-interlacing, etc. But one of the nice things with the Pi Storm, as you'll see when we get to that video, if we ever do, is it provides retargetable graphics. So RTG, I've mentioned it a number of times, I think, maybe. It's, you've got a GPU on the hardware, so on the case of, the Pi Storm, you've got the GPU built into this, and you've got lots of RAM. So, yeah, the way it works is some of that RAM is mapped into the Amiga's address space, and the Amiga, obviously populates the graphic data there, and then sends various data, if you like, control signals to a device like an RTG card, and the GPU on there does all the graphics work. So if it's a super fast GPU like you've got on here, you can have higher resolution screens, and things like Doom and stuff runs really fluid and really well in RTG mode, because the Amiga hardware is not the thing that's throwing around the graphics data. It's not having to do the movement of the data, the blitzing and stuff, using a super fast GPU, with its own RAM, and then the Amiga is literally just taking, every frame, whatever, is taking a snapshot of that RAM, blitzing it to the, place it outputs, so you can get amazing performance. But anyway, that's going to be another video. So a huge thanks to Keith McGurr for sending this. I've really enjoyed looking at this. I'm sorry it took a long time to get around to this video. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi, Patreon and merch links down below. Some of the merch may change a bit. If you look at buying if you did want to buy a mug, just look how small the print is. Just bear in mind, give me a week or two, I'll redo those mugs and make the text a bit larger. But anyway, any purchases on there or donations just help the channel keep going. It's not like I'm sat here going, oh, I've got a swimming pool out the back, do you know what I mean, or a helicopter. It's like, it just helps the channel keep going. That is the thing at the end of the day. So yeah, every little donation makes a huge difference, and the people that do support me, I cannot thank you enough. I will get around to shortly some of the people on the higher Patreon tiers, giving you a shout out, a few shout outs across a few different videos. I've just got sidetracked, trying to catch up. I'm so far behind with various things going on in my life, but yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you in the next one.